settle our mind. Then we can think and reflect, all the problem, conflict that we experience individually, as well as collectively, in our family, in our state, our country, in our world. Even though there are so many causes and conditions, for those conflict, problem, the pains. There are many external causes and conditions, as well as internal causes and conditions. And among all the causes and conditions, the main cause and condition is our own individuals or collective negative state of mind, defilements, such as anger, frustrations, impatience, jealousy, pride, arrogance, greediness, and all of those harmful negative thoughts, feelings, emotions arises from the very root of the fundamental ignorance and selfish attitude. These two are the very root of all other negative emotions, which are the fundamental root of our individual or collective conflict, pain, suffering. Therefore, it is so crucially important to work our mind to reduce and overcome that kind of selfish attitude and the ignorance, self-grasping ignorance. To deal with all the conflict, problem, suffering on much more deeper level, we need to do that. Individually, collectively. And the Lojong practice are for that purpose. the Lojong practice are to minimize, to reduce such selfish attitude and self-grasping ignorance. And even though there are many causes and conditions for our individual and collective comfort, joy, happiness, both external, internal, again, the main cause of our true sense of joy, satisfaction, peace, inner peace is our own state of mind. Such as, true loving kindness, compassion, bodhicitta mind, wisdom realizing the ultimate reality, sense of contentment, patience, and all these inner qualities. Therefore, we need to try to generate or cultivate those inner positive qualities or realizations, increase and improve more and more. And the Lojong practices help us to do that. So that is why we have come here together to listen, to reflect, contemplate on the Lojong teaching and practices so that we can apply as much as possible in our everyday life. And little by little, reducing the selfish attitude and that ignorance. Little by little, increasing, improving sense of patience, loving kindness, compassion, wisdom, sense of contentment, and so forth. That is the main reason that we all come together on a weekly basis for that, not to just collect the information, but really so we can apply in our life, our everyday, as much as possible. And may our act of coming together, listening to the teachings, reflecting, contemplating, may all become cause and conditions to obtain fully enlightenment or fully awakened state as soon as possible, so we can be even more greater benefit and help to not just only very limited sentient beings, but countless, each and every sentient beings. And not only be helpful temporarily, but to be able to help on a much more deeper level, in profound way. Okay. To the founder, the endowed transcendent destroyer, the one gone beyond, the fourth destroyer, the completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and in good conduct, Sugata, Lord of the world, supreme guide of human beings to be tamed, teacher of gods and human beings, to you, the complete and fully awakened one, the endowed transcendent destroyer, the glorious conqueror, the subduer from the Shakya clan, I prostrate, make offering, and go for refuge. Homage to the Supreme Buddha, homage to the Dharma refuge, homage to the great Sangha, to all, to the ever devout homage, to all worthy of respect, bowing with bodies as many as all realms, atoms in all aspects. With the supreme faith, I pay homage, do not commit any non-virtuous action, perform all the perfect virtuous actions, subdue your mind through. This is the teaching of the Buddha. A star, a visual aberrations, a flame of a lamp, an illusion, a drop of dew, a bubble, a dream, a flash of lightning, a cloud, see condition, things as such. Through this merit may sentient beings attain the rank of all seeing, subdue the four of false, and be delivered from samsara's ocean, perturbed by the wave of aging, sickness, and death. 사시베게 조심해도 다리라 링지 니데겐바데 상계신도 니데오와 로그 나마다신 I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. Sangye Chodan Sogi Sonam La Changchu Pado Dani Dagi Geshe Chekawa Sonam Yi Lola Benje Sangye Doba Sangye Chodan Sogi Sonam La Changchu Pado Dagi Geshe Chekawa Sonam Yi Lola Benje Sangye Doba. So, as I mentioned in the motivations, the primary cause of our pain, conflict, and problem is our own selfish attitude and ignorance. And we need to reduce them, we need to overcome them in order to overcome the conflict, the problem, the pain, suffering permanently. And to do that, then we need to cultivate and develop the antidotes. That is the Bodhicitta mind that can act as an antidote toward the selfish attitude, and the wisdom that act as an antidote to the ignorance, and then engage in a practice, the preliminary practices that help to cultivate those bodhicitta and wisdom, and to maintain them and to increase them. And in order to do that, then we engage in a practice such as, the Lojong commitments. The Lojong commitments and advice are a way to help us to continue to reconnect with that bodhicitta mind and wisdom that help us to not to deteriorate and continue to maintain and to increase and improve those the bodhicitta and wisdom, and reducing the selfish attitudes and the ignorance. And so again, in terms of Lojong practices, there are many different many different texts, and we have been following particular texts. And 7-point mind training by Geshe Chekawa. And within that, there are 7 points, and we are in the 6th point. That is the commitment, and there are 18 commitment of Lojong. And then I think we just finished last week up to the 9th, the 9th commitments. And that is like avoiding the poisonous food. So we just finished, and so we continue. And then the 10th is don't maintain misplaced loyalty. Again, what it means, I think there are so many different, when I look different translation, they all have different translation, each of those slogans, because each of them cannot really convey exactly what it is trying to say. Some of them because it relates with Tibetan words in relation to certain cultural context. So I think, and when you read the English, what does that mean? So basically the meaning of here is, in our ordinary worldly life, loyalty is a good qualities that we need. And what it means, for example, whether it's our family members, whether it's our friends, or whether it's a stranger who have come in our life at a certain time and help us, especially when we're in difficult times, who lend their help, so we remember their kindness, their kindness. We remember their kindness. We try to remember and try to repay the kindness. And you try to remember all the time, and you try to repay the kindness, then it is a positive qualities. It is regarded as good, and is kind of loyalty, kind of so we don't forget, we don't forget, and we try to keep alive all the time by recollecting, by remembering, like revisiting, and through that. So here, what it means, don't maintain misplaced loyalty. So here, what it means is then not to have any kind of resentment, because resentment has similar attitude. When you have resentment, then what you do is when if someone has said something, negative, hurtful, harmful, if someone did something hurtful, harmful, if someone has, whoever that might be, if someone has had a negative, harmful attitude toward that, then we revisit that again and again. We remember that again and again. We don't let it go. We keep it alive all the time, unable to let it go. Oh, at a certain time, he said, or he or she said that, did this, that, and had that kind of attitude, or this and that. So we keep on counting that event, that instant, that actions, that behavior again and again. In that way, we keep it very alive all the time. And through that, we keep that resentment, And so that kind of, we shouldn't have that kind of resentment. And that is being misplaced loyalty, because that is what it means, being kind of loyalty to that, your resentment, So basically, in simple way is not to have any resentment. Let go of any resentment. Because resentment is part of anger. And when there is such kind of anger and resentment, one, it makes you painful. Each time you remember that, is painful. If you don't remember that, if you are able to let it go, you don't have to go through that pain again and again. But each time we remember that, each time we recollect that, each time we keep it, we bring it alive by thinking again and again, we are creating more, each time we are creating and bringing more pain to ourselves. And when we have that resentment, then because of that resentment, then we started to feel negative towards the other beings, others. And with that negative feelings, then we might hurt and harm them. So it hurts and harm you. There is a potential to hurt and harm others. And then, of course, it is obstacles to cultivate true loving kindness, compassion, bodhicitta mind. So it doesn't help our loving kindness, compassion, bodhicitta to grow, but it interferes from the growth of our loving kindness and compassion. And therefore, we should try all our best not to have any kind of resentment. When something happens, we try to deal it quickly as possible, and then do not hold in our not holding in our heart, in our mind. The sooner you are able to let it go, the less painful it is, the better it is for yourself and to others, everyone. And if we have resentment, if we don't deal with that, and if we have resentment, and it built up, the more I recollect, the more I remember, the more, then it slowly becomes stronger and stronger, and one day it will explode. One day it will explode, in very badly, And so therefore, is not useful. It is not useful. Yeah, it is not useful, helpful, beneficial. Is harmful to oneself and to others, to the society. So therefore, we should try everything, apply everything in order to not to have resentment, and to, if we do have, to let it go as soon as possible. So that is what is the meaning of that 10th. And 11, don't make sarcastic remark, again, with the intentions to hurt and harm others, then sometimes we make sarcastic remarks that hurt and harm others. Sometimes we use harsh words that hurt and harm others. And again, it is not a healthy and beneficial speech. Instead, we should try to practice to have a more gentle and kind and sincere speech and remarks, sarcastic remark or harsh word, sometimes those words can be more damaging than physical violence, in certain situation to certain individual. They might be able to overcome physical violence, abuse someone has done, but they might not be able to overcome some of the harsh speech, sarcastic remark that really hurt them. It can be very, very, our speech has a very strong power, speech has a very strong power in both positive way and negative way. And so it can have a very positive impact in someone's individual life or in a society collectively, or it can have very strong negative impact on individual level or on a collectively in a society, And by understanding the power of our words, the power of our speech, we have to utilize it positive way, properly, in a conducive and positive way, instead of using it for a negative. Sometimes we are not mindful of our speech and our words. And because we are not so mindful and aware of that, sometimes we are not aware how much we are damaging someone due to our wrong speech and not right speech, such as sarcastic and harsh speech and words is important, and that is why the Buddha gives us such a emphasis on the speech, and therefore refrain from 10 among the 10 non-virtuous actions. There are 4 which are non-virtuous speech, refraining from them and engaging the virtuous speech, So when we utilize our speech, our mind, our speech, and our actions or behavior to express such a harmful and hurtful actions of behavior, then again, it minimizes and deteriorate our loving kindness, compassion, bodhicitta, those good qualities, On the other hand, when we use our mind and speech and body, all our 3 doors, in a more compassionate way, in a more kind way, in a more healthy way, then it helps us to increase our these good qualities, goodness of our loving kindness, compassion, bodhicitta mind. It increase, it help, it become a conducive conditions. Our speech can become a conducive condition for our love and compassion, or it can be a detrimental or obstacles or interference for our development of our loving kindness, compassion. And so therefore, again, especially when we are engaged in the practice of Lojong, again, we already talked about that is the practice of bodhisattvas. The practice of bodhisattvas is to help and benefit other sentient beings as much as possible, according to our ability, according to our capacity, according to our situations. But even if we cannot help others because of our, shortcomings, because of our limited external, internal resources, but at least we try not to hurt and harm others. At least we should try not to hurt and harm others, intentionally, unintentionally. And that is why we should avoid and refrain from using such harmful, harsh speech or sarcastic speech and so forth. So yeah, so that is so I think that is the 11 and 12. Don't lie in ambush. Don't lie in ambush. Ambush.
Guess what's ambush?
Ambush. Thank you. I think this is giving an example. I think in Tibet, I think also when you see here also, sometimes like you have small canyon, there is only one way and you have to go to canyon. And when enemies, when they are fighting, when trying to ambush the enemy, they take that kind of strategic area where they can ambush whenever they get any opportunity, in such a narrow places, where they cannot kind of run away easily, because of such narrow places like that. And also sometime in the past, when people are traveling by horses or by walking, where the bandits or robbers, they used to also wait in such places and ambush in that. So here what it means, that taking as an example, here it means don't be, opportunistic, trying to looking for the opportunity to hurt and harm someone you dislike, your enemy, For example, someone you have conflict, someone you have difficulties, enemy. So looking for opportunity, and especially looking for opportunity when they are more vulnerable, So sometimes, maybe someone is more powerful than us, physically, power-wise, politically, financially, and maybe we might not be able to, harm them directly, but looking for an opportunity, holding in your mind, and waiting for that opportunity, waiting for that when they become more vulnerable, and then ready to attack them, and so holding that kind of mind and attitude. So again, it goes against the Bodhisattva practice. It goes against the Lojong practice to have such a mind. It goes against the practice of loving kindness, compassion, bodhicitta. So then we shouldn't be. And sometimes we can have that kind of attitude, I remember when we were young, in the monastery, sometimes we had one teacher who was quite disciplinary, physical punishment. And sometimes, and remember some of the young monks, when they say, when we get, as we grow, as we get older, that teacher will be very old, and then we can, and old and then powerless, and then maybe we can, then we can see what we can do, So that is kind of attitude. You see, of course, those young monks, even though they felt that way, that because they are angry and they're upset, and but of course they never did that. As they grow up spiritually, they grow up, they have better understanding, they transform and change. They never kind of attack later in that way, but that is, the young monks sometimes when they're upset and angry, that is how they felt, and felt that, and so that expressed exactly what he's talking about here. Maybe your boss, is not being kind to you, but at the same time you cannot stand up for that because you might be fired, you might lose your job, but inside you might be holding that. Once I have some opportunity, if he or she make one mistake, I'm going to point out that I'm going to, I'm going to say to the higher one, and so and so. So that kind of waiting, due to whatever, anger, hatred, resentment, whatever, due to disliking, due to argument, conflict, whatever that is, but holding that, a sense of wanting to get back whenever you get the right time, right opportunity. It's like you are waiting for the right time, right situations to retaliate, to hurt and harm them back. So that is, so here, when we are engaged in both Sherab practice, path, and the Lojong, the advice, the commitment is not to have that kind of attitude, that kind of mindset, and not wanting to attack, retaliate, and looking for that kind of opportunity, right opportunity, time, and situation, and so forth. Instead, if possible, trying to feel compassion, if possible, trying to help and benefit. So that is the both Sherab practice. That is the advice, the commitment here. That is so that is what it means. Don't lie in ambush. Don't strike at the vital points. It is a little bit similar. It is slightly different from the 11. We say don't make sarcastic or harsh words. So, but it is also speech here. Again, here is talking about the speech. So sometimes it might not be harsh. The word itself might not be very harsh. Harsh word, sometimes we can see it is very harsh. Everyone can see it is a harsh word. We can see it, we can feel it, we can understand it's harsh. Sometimes even in a sarcastic remark, we kind of know the intentions, little bit. But here, by word itself, it might seem not as harsh word, it might look very gentle word. Sometimes it might even sound a nice word, kind word, but the point is the persons, how to get to that person is like what you call pushing a burden. Burden? Yeah. So it's like how to push the burden. If you react in certain way, in that way, then that will really hurt that person. That will really hurt that person. And so using such speeches, and sometimes we wouldn't know that is a harmful or not a kind words immediately. Sometimes, you might not know because it is so indirect. It's so indirect. Harsh is easy, it's so direct. Sarcastic, even some way is, but this type of speech, you have the intentions to hurt and harm someone, and the points, how to hurt, how to harm with that kind of speech, and then you really hit to that point, and so again, when you do that, again, it is still hurting and harming someone. Still you have that intentions. Still you are hurting and harming someone. It goes against the both of practice. It goes against the practice of loving kindness, compassion, both to the mind. It goes against the Lojong practices. And so therefore, again, we should try all our best to not to use such speech, such words. And again, we are talking about, why we shouldn't engage into so many different way of hurting and harming others through different attitude, through different state of mind, through different speech, through different physical behavior actions. And some of them, because we are very accustomed to that, because of certain culture, because of certain friends, because of your environment. But we have to be very mindful and awareness all the time and trying to change such, whether it's a speech, whether it's a physical behavior, or is a mental attitude. And if we keep on trying to change it, then slowly we'll be able to kind of interrupt our impulsive, natural way of responding, at the moment. Those unhealthy, negative, harmful, any kind of attitude, any kind of speech, any kind of behavior. A lot of time we are not mindful, a lot of time we are not aware of that, and so that we just kind of say something, it just slip from your mouth, it just come from out because it's such a kind of impulsive. And because we don't pay enough attention, by being more mindful, more aware, and then trying, when we've noticed that, trying hard to change that and interrupt that, the ordinary way of responding. If we do that over the time, then we will be able to change it. Over the time, then different way of attitude, different way of using speech, different way of using your more beneficial, more healthy, more will be then become more habit. And that would be more habit and more easy, more natural. And that's where we want to reach. But we can't reach to that point immediately, like in one go. It requires constant effort and constant applying and trying to do that. And to do that, we need be very mindful and aware all the time. Very mindful and aware all the time. You know, it comes all the time. A lot of time we hurt and harm others, not because we want to hurt and harm others. Unintentionally, if we hurt and harm others, and a lot of time we hurt and harm others, not because we have the intention to do that, but because we're not mindful. We're not mindful how we respond it, how we express our physically, how we use our speech. We are not mindful, and being aware of that can hurt and harm others. So therefore, again, so that is the, then next one, the 14, don't burden an ox with the load of a zoe. Zoe is a mixture of cow and yak. Yak is a kind of very animal in Tibet. Here, like in native, it is like the buffalo. So they are very strong, and of course also they used to be also, because they are strong, also they used to be for the transporting things, carrying things in the old times. And they are expensive also too. And of course they are also used for meat and fur and all of that, So anyway, so zoe is a mixture of that, yak and cow, So of course, yak is most you call maybe more valuable. Then zoe is the next. Then the ox or cow will be the less valuable, in terms of that, in terms of valuable. And also in terms of the, you can say, strong wise. Also, zoe is stronger than the ox or the cows, So that is what, so of course, again, you see in a lot of example using from the culture and what that is. So, but, so with that, so even though zoe is stronger than the ox, but because zoe is more valuable, so the owner, sometimes they might put more things to the ox than the zoe because they don't want to lose the zoe. They want to keep it for a long time, and they don't mind if the ox kind of die because it's less valuable in one way, because it's and similarly, that is what we shouldn't have that kind of attitude, So what that means is we can have that kind of attitude, for example, in different ways. One is, not taking responsibility yourself and blaming the others, So then that is like giving the burdens, your burden to someone else, okay? Instead of especially when we are working together as a group, as a community, everyone work together. And then when something goes wrong, instead of taking responsibility, then we say, oh, it wasn't my decision, it was the other person's decisions. So we blame others. We give the burden, our burden to others. And we give out, when someone criticizes us for our actions, let's say as a community, committee, whoever make the decision, the board, for example, board or community, whatever that is, cabinet, whatever. When something's fail or something doesn't go so well, then each of say, oh, it wasn't my fault. I was not supportive of that idea or decision, but someone else was pushing for that, or it was someone else's decision, or someone pressured me to do that, or all kind of things. So we try to push all the criticism, all the failing of that to someone else, instead of the willingness to take on responsibility, taking the burden on yourself, taking the criticism on yourself. We try to give to someone else. And so here it's saying that we shouldn't be doing that. When we do that because we value ourselves more than others, we value our reputation more than others. We value because my reputation more than someone's reputations. Because I don't value someone's reputation same as my reputations. Do you get it? If someone criticizes and if they lose their reputation, it doesn't matter, but I shouldn't lose my reputations. So therefore, we kind of give the burden to others. So it is saying that we shouldn't be doing that. That is against the Lojong practice. It's against the Bodhisattva practice. It's against the practice of loving kindness, compassion, bodhicitta. The other thing is, when we have to work together, as a group, whether it's two individuals or as a big group, whatever. When something comes, there's something, certain action, certain job that we need to do, which is not easy, difficult, then again, we try to give to someone else to do that. Instead of taking the responsibility yourself to do that. If it's easy, you take on that. If something difficult, then you try to give to someone else. And sometimes it is ourselves, and sometimes it might be, I don't want to give the difficult job to my friends, my children, but I would rather give to someone who is not my friend, my families. And that is another similar way of doing that, giving the burden to someone else. Because again, we are cherishing yourself more value and your family, your friend more than others. And so, because it's more difficult, there is a more likely, challenges. And so not willing to take the challenge yourself, instead to give someone else. And we want to take the more easy, we want to do the more easy one. And if things go well, we want to take the credit. And something goes wrong, then we can blame others. That was his job or her job, and he or she didn't do well. And so, so it is kind of exploiting, taking advantage of others, misusing others, taking advantage of others, exploiting others. And so therefore, so that is the commitment is not to that. Instead, even someone criticize others, we should be willing to take the criticism to ourselves. Even though maybe we, as a group, as a community, when something goes wrong, when people started criticizing others, instead, oh, it was not his or her fault. It was my fault. I did that. I asked them to do that. Or I took the action to do that. I took the decision to that. So it is not their fault. Actually, it is my fault. We should be able to willing to take the criticism on behalf of others. Of course, it's not easy at all to us ordinary beings at the moment, but the bodhisattvas can do that, and that they are able to do that because of practice over the time. And so here, just encouraging us to. It's not easy, but we should try to do that. And instead of throwing the criticism on others, we try to take the burden on ourselves instead of giving to others, especially those who are more vulnerable. So willing to take criticism ourselves. If there is an easy and difficult job, the willing to take the difficult job on yourself and giving the easy one to the others. So not so easy, isn't it? But definitely, both server practice is not as easy, But definitely, is something we can aspire. Something even we cannot apply immediately, we can at least aspire and make a strong prayer and dedication to be able to do that. And at least we can start in small level. Even we cannot take criticism of others on ourselves. At least maybe we don't try to blame the criticism to others, not give them, and so, yeah. So I think maybe we will have a short break, 10 minutes break, okay? Thank you. So again, please feel comfortable to ask questions, okay? Either writing or directly if you have any. Otherwise, I might ask question back. So the next one, the next commitment, the 15 is a don't abuse the practice. So here, saying don't abuse the Lojong practice, and what it means is, again, the Lojong practice, as we already mentioned, and have been repeating since we begin again and again, the Lojong practice is to a practice to reduce and eventually overcome selfish attitudes, self-grasping ignorance. Lojong practice is to improve and increase loving kindness, compassion, bodhicitta, mind, wisdom. So when you abuse the Lojong practice, what it means is, externally, it might look like you are practicing the Lojong practice, because sometimes externally, maybe we might be giving victory to others, taking a loss to ourselves. Externally, maybe we might be acting like we are very patient, tolerant. But we do that sometimes because we want to impress others. We want to impress others how patient you are, how good practitioner you are. And so in the deep motivations is because you want to impress others, because you want people to like you. So you're trying to be patience, so that because then that person might like you if you, or because, if you try to show that you are very compassionate, very kind, not taking care of yourself, but wanting to help someone. So from outside, it looks like you are sacrificing your own happiness for someone's. From outside, it looks you are really practicing the Lojong, the Bodhisattva path practice. But whether that's true Bodhisattva practice, whether that's true Lojong practice or not, we have to look deeper level. What is the intention? What is the motivation? Sometimes the motivation might be, because maybe if I don't do it, I feel like I will feel guilty, or I will look very bad in the people's eyes. Here I'm not, someone is in difficult and I'm not kind of reaching out my hand. So people will look very bad on me. People will think, oh, he is not compassionate, not kind, caring. So you are not doing because you really care, not because you really have compassion, not because you really want to do it, because otherwise I will look bad. Otherwise, or sometimes because we want to impress, because we want other people to like us. So basically it is still, so instead of reducing the selfish attitude, it's increasing the selfish attitude. The Lojong practice is to reduce the selfish attitude, but by doing that, then you are kind of feeding the selfish attitude. You are giving the fuel to the selfish attitude. So that is what it means. In that sense, then we are abusing the Lojong practices, misusing it. The Lojong practice is to reduce the selfish attitude, but instead we use it to increase the selfish attitude. Instead, we use it to fuel the selfish attitude. Instead, we use the Lojong to increase and feed the selfish attitude. And so that is, again, mindfulness, awareness, and looking deep inside. So here, another way of looking is here, we have to do the practice sincerely and honestly. Another way of putting this is when we do the practice, Lojong practice, we try to do it sincerely and honestly, where there is no discrepancy, what do you call?
Disparate?
Yeah, or the kind of different.
Yeah, disparate.
Disparate, something outside, something else, inside something else. Outside it looks like compassion, inside it is a selfish attitude. Inside it is driven by selfish attitude because it's all about me. I like other people to like me. I want to impress others because I want to, have a good reputation. I want to be seen a good practitioner. So it becomes about yourself. But outside, then it looks like you are sacrificing your own happiness and doing for someone else. From outside, we seems like very patient, very tolerant, all of that. And so sometimes unless we really unless we look deeply inside, sometimes we might not even be aware of that. Sometimes it comes in a subtle way. If it's a growth, it's easy to recognize that. But when it's subtle, sometimes it's difficult to recognize it unless you really look honestly, deeply, and so here's to make sure that we don't abuse the Lojong practice so that it doesn't become a fuel for the selfish attitude. Okay. Instead, it should be an antidote to the selfish attitude, not a fuel to the selfish attitude. And when you kind of misuse it, then that is the problem that can happen. And so that is the instruction, the advice, the commitment here. And then the next one, 16, don't sprint to win the race. So this is another ordinary human beings tendency, or is that we like to compete all the time, in everything. We want to be the best. We want to be the first. We want to be the winner, not the last, not the loser. And so whether we are competing, whether we are engaged in a sport, whether we are in a job, whether we are in a whatever, there's a sense of wanting to be yourself one step ahead of others. One step ahead of others, And it is even worse when the whole society encourages that kind of, when the culture and the society encourage the young people from very young, it is all about winning and losing, then it becomes even more worse. We already have a little bit of that kind of naturalism for ordinary human beings because of our delusion, unenlightened. We already have a little bit of that, and then socially it kind of encouraged, and then our mind become very strong in that attitude, And then even when we come to spiritual, then we bring that same attitude, We want more attention from the teachers or other members, So again, you want to be like the ahead, that someone who get most attention from our teachers, who get most attention from all other Sangha members. Or, wanting to outdo each other, oh, I have received this teaching and I want to receive something more profound, someone who others have not received. So then we can say, oh, I've received this teaching, oh, I've received all these high initiations, all of that. Sometimes it's just for counting, to have list tick up, so that we can see, we are more kind of advanced students. Oh, you haven't received those teachings? Oh, you are still a beginner, That kind of attitude. There's some level of that kind of racing, wanted to be ahead. Sometimes if you don't watch, sometimes it can be, even the spiritual practice can become a little bit like that. How many retreats you have done? Oh, I have done more than you. How much, preliminary or whatever practice, meditation, how many hours do you do practice meditations? And then if someone say, I do 2 hours, you feel bad because you feel like you're a loser. Why do we feel bad? You might be doing 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and someone does 2 hours, 3 hours, that is great. Instead of rejoicing and being happy, you feel bad. Oh, he does 2 hours, 3 hours, and I only do, because you feel like you're a loser. And because that attitude, that kind of mentality is there, strongly imbued inside. And that is how in our life, become so miserable. We started to always relate with that. When we feel miserable when someone has more than ourselves. Oh, he has 2 cars, he has a beautiful house. I've only a small house, only 1 house. Oh, he's so smart, so intelligent. I'm not so smart, I'm not so intelligent. You feel almost like loser, bad, because we compare, because there's sense of that kind of competing, that you should be equal, if not 1 step ahead of them. Oh, he is millionaire or billionaire. I'm not millionaire. So again, you feel bad. So that kind of mentality, it comes in everywhere. And that makes our life so, much more miserable. Oh, he or she is so healthy. I'm not that healthy. Then you feel like I'm loser. I'm not good enough. Or he or she is, much more attractive, beautiful, handsome. I'm not so handsome, beautiful, attractive. And then again, you feel like you are not good enough. And that is how we suffer. Due to all this sense of this competing and always feeling we are behind. And that make our life miserable, and I can see that. I can see so many people who feel so bad about themselves, who doesn't have a good image of themselves, because they are always compared with someone who has better than themselves. If that is going to be the case, there is always someone who is going to be more rich than yourself. There is always someone who is going to be more healthier than yourself. There is always someone who is going to be more smart, intelligent than yourself. There's always, until you become enlightened, fully enlightened, and then we all are equal. And so when the moment we have that kind of competitive mindset, then you are going to not feel so happy with yourself and your circumstances, your ability, your situations. And then instead of being happy and enjoying and cheerful with what you have, you started to feel miserable. It's very unfortunate, but I kind of see more in this culture, in this kind of environment. Sometimes I see people, doing well financially, they have house, they have job, everything's kind of things, but still they feel unhappy because, oh, I don't have this and that, and other people have so much, they must be so happy. Oh, they must be so happy because they have so much. And I'm not happy because I don't have that much. But actually they have a lot. And that can be, we can have that kind of attitude in every aspect of our life. And we sometimes bring that even in a spiritual practice. and feel we are, the word I was trying to find, I couldn't come, but you feel you are not good enough because there is someone who is better than you, who does better than you. And it's unfortunate when you don't feel, when you don't enjoy your practice and feeling, instead of inspiring, encouraging yourself, because we have made small progress than what we used to be, always comparing others, someone who is better. And that, why we have to do that? Because that comes from that kind of competitiveness, the attitude of competing and competitiveness. We don't have to compete with others. If you want to compete, you can compete with yourself from last year to this year, and through that you can still excel, you can still improve, increase. If you need something to push yourself to be better, and if you think competitive help, you don't have to compete with someone, you can compete with yourself to put a little bit harder, to push yourself a little bit harder. If that helps to you, kind of motivate you, if that motivates you to more better, yeah. There is so much stress in our modern world because of this competitive mindset. In terms of education, in terms of business, in terms of everything is always, is one of the main source, another source of stress for people, all this competitiveness. Instead of, being happy and encouraging, inspiring, because we have made some progress compared to last year or maybe 5 years ago, 10 years ago. Instead, we feel very bad because that person have done so much, this and that, and I haven't done anything, or I have done all very little. Instead of being a source of encouragement, inspiration, joy, it becomes depressing, discouraging, unhappy. Why? Because we are comparing with someone who have done better than ourselves, And again, where does that come? It's a sense of that kind of, competitive attitude, It's absolutely not a healthy attitude. Absolutely. Not for an individual, not for a society. As a society, then we are always running. One is trying to catch up the other one, other is trying to catch up another one. The whole life is running, trying to outdo each other, outsmart each other, outperform each other. What is the meaning of that? What is the purpose of that? You never stop. There's no time to stop and enjoy, because if you stop trying to rest, someone will outperform you, someone will outsmart you, someone overtake you. So you can't stop and rest. You keep on running and running and running. When you have that kind of mental attitude. If you don't have that mental attitude, you can run and then you can rest. You can enjoy. And if someone pass you, another person pass you, it's okay, or you are happy for them. You are happy for them. and you are happy with yourself, you just rest, you know how much you need to run, how much you need to rest, being happy with that. But when you are trying to win and when trying to outsmart, outperform that, then that you can never rest, because always there's someone who is running. The moment you started to rest, the moment you started to relax, sit there, someone would pass you, and then you cannot rest. And it's so that kind of course, we need to evaluate ourselves in order to kind of improve ourselves, but we don't have to compare with others. We can compare our own state. Have I made some progress, especially on spiritual level? Have I made some progress compared to what I was 1 year ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, And so through that, then it should inspire, encourage, and keep on us, give us energy to continue to practice and move on. But not to compete with others, it's so that is what it is meaning. And sometimes, sometimes you see, is sometimes you see people, you meet people, and they want to talk to you, because I'm a monk when I'm walking, and they ask you, of course, different people ask different questions, but one of the some of the questions that I hear time to time, and especially from other practitioners, what is your lineage? Who is your guru? I find very strange. Like in Nepal or Tibet or where I come from, nobody will ask that questions. Maybe as we know, and we know very well enough, maybe then in normal conversation, then we might talk about about my teachers and their teachers and what kind of thing. But and that attitude, and I feel like I don't know, there is so there's already a little bit kind of already judgmental, there's almost a little bit like judgmental with even just the way the question is asked. So if your teacher is not well known, then you are less. Oh, I've received teaching from this Lama, this Lama, this Lama, High Lama, Dalai Lama, this all the list of High Lamas, And if you have received teachings from teachers who are unknown, and who might be good but who are not well known, then it feels like, oh, your teacher is not well known. There's already a little bit of competitive kind of attitude. There's already a little bit of superiority and inferior attitude. Do you get it? And it is a side, but it can happen. Even in our spiritual practice. Even for a spiritual practitioner, when we don't really pay enough attention deeply, even through that, even on spiritual level, we can feel more we are better, more superior. Others less. They are inferior. Based on what we have studied, based on what we have practiced, based on how much we have studied, based on how much retreat meditation we have done, based on from what teachers we are connected with, all of that, there's a sense of a little bit of feeling of superior and others. Again, And as a Buddhist, sometimes we have to be careful. There's a sense of a little bit of superior that we are than some of other religious, and especially if they are presented as a fundamental religious, be it Christianity, any kind of, that is something we have to be careful. There is no doubt the Buddha teachings and Buddha's teaching emphasize on loving kindness, compassion, bodhicitta to all sentient beings equally, and all of that. But just because we are studying that, just because we are practicing that, just on the basis of that, just because we practice, we have to be careful that we don't have this sense of superiority. We are more compassionate and others are less compassionate. Then I think it will come, and then the medicine hasn't been some effective. It's like medicine, you have taken medicine to cure something, but it hasn't been effective. Instead of being cured, maybe it might have had other side effect. Not being able to cure, but also having other side effect. And so that is something that we have to watch our mind, our you see sometimes we have superior because we have studied more than because those who have studied less. And then there are other who have meditated so much, then they have sense of superiority because they have meditated so much, and others have meditated less. And there is all kind of, basically, whatever sense of feeling we are better, more superior, based on your study, your practice, all of that. We shouldn't be the case, but sometimes there is danger of that. And so that is why it is saying, don't sprint to win the race, okay? Don't turn gods into devil. Again, I think it is just using that example. Normally, when we talk about God, is something positive, a being who is helpful, beneficial. When we talk about devil, it is normally we use as something which is harmful, scary, fearful, harmful. So taking that just as an example, but the meaning is, something which should be beneficial that become harmful. That is what it means. God turning into devil, meaning something which should be helpful and beneficial, but instead of being helpful and beneficial, it becoming harmful and not beneficial. That is what it means. It's saying that we shouldn't allow that to happen. So it is kind of the practice of the Dharma, and especially the practice of the Lojong, is supposed to be helpful, beneficial in cultivating, increasing, improving loving kindness, compassion, bodhicitta, mind, wisdom, and all the positive inner quality realizations. It is supposed to be helpful and beneficial, or it should be helpful and beneficial to reduce and minimize our defilement, our delusions, and especially our selfish attitude and self ignorance. It should be beneficial and helpful in doing that. That should be the case. But when it doesn't become that, instead, it increases our delusions. Instead, the very practice, our very Dharma practice, whatever form of practice we are doing, whether we are doing meditation or whether we are doing some other form of practice or study, whatever we are doing, instead of minimizing, reducing those delusions and selfish attitude, but instead, if it increase those negative state of mind, then that is what happened. Then it became from being beneficial to becoming harmful. It didn't become beneficial, but it became harmful. So it's like turning the God into a devil. And so I think I already discussed a little bit with the last verb, you know, as we study more, as we meditate more, if we are becoming more and more, you know, arrogant, if we are becoming more a sense of superiority, then, you know, it is increasing your sense of unhealthy pride, sense of arrogance, sense of superiority, sense of your self-important. So we have to watch, see whether it is happening, if that it is becoming that or not. If it's becoming that, then we have to again kind of see where it is going wrong, you know. Maybe we are just getting all this information, but it's not sinking in our heart, you know. So we think we are making progress because of all this intellectual understanding and all that, but because we didn't really apply it, integrate it, implement it, it's not really sinking and it's really not transforming our mind or heart. So on the basis of a little bit more understanding, you feel that you're superior because you have better understanding than many others who doesn't have those understanding, either due to not having studied enough or not having done enough meditations, but you know. So that is what that is the meaning of the 17 commitments, and that is something we have to pay attention, you know. Sometimes it can happen, you know. Sometimes it can happen. If we don't pay enough attention, if we are not mindful enough, if we don't have enough awareness, and even we are becoming more and more kind of sense of pride, arrogant, sense of self-importance, sense of superiority. Sometimes we might not be even aware of that, you know. And sometimes we are not aware, but sometimes someone can see it through the way you talk about it, the way there's a, because it kind of comes in the conversation, your attitude, your way of talking, even you are not aware it, the way you talk it, the way your attitude, it make others inferior, you know. Making feel others less, making feel others inferior, making others, you know, all of that, you know. So yeah, I think it seems like there might be one questions. Okay, there is, could you please speak to a technique of analyzing one's own mind and mental state? I think one, you know, you have to study a little bit about the mind and mental factors, okay? There are, I think within the Discovering Buddhism, there is one module which is called mind and minds and its potential. So I think that covers a little bit of that about the mind and different mental states, mental factors. And then of course, there are some other many actually writings about mind and its awareness, or the mind and the mental factors. So we try to understand a little bit first, what are different levels of the mind, some of those negative minds, some of those positive minds. How do they arise? What are the causes of them to arise? What is the nature of that mind? How does it affect us? So we study a little bit from scripture, and then once we have studied from scripture, then we look in our mind when we have certain emotions, certain state of mind, certain feelings, certain thoughts, and then seeing, which whatever I'm feeling now, which is that one. And to be able to identify, you have learned, it's like, you have learned about something, a plant or bird, of all this bird has this and this and all this color and this shape and this and that. And then you see bird, and then you see, does this have this? Does this have this? And then you identify, this is that bird. Or this or that plant. So now you are able to, before you have heard about it, and now you really directly see it, and you are, with your direct experience, you are able to identify it, recognize it, and then what it was taught before that you learned from the book or someone else, and now with your experience, you kind of authentify and understand that the same way, then that is how, then we watch, we watch our different feelings, different emotions, different thoughts, and then, seeing what's the nature of that mind, how does it affect us, oneself and others, what gives rise to that thoughts, feeling, emotions, and then through that, then we are able to identify all those different thoughts, emotions. And once you are able to identify and recognize different feelings, different thoughts, then when any of those harmful negative thought arises, you will be able to immediately kind of identify it, recognize it, and then you can, once you recognize, then you can immediately try to apply whatever practice antidote to reduce and to overcome them. And when being able to identify and recognize clearly with your own experience directly, and then when you see something, positive emotion, positive feelings, thoughts, mind arises, then you identify, that is what it is. And then you try to increase and improve, try to nourish it, mature it, and trying to maintain and increase and improve that. And so I think I would say that is the. So first we learn about it from scripture, and then through mindfulness and awareness, then we try to identify insight, and then recognize them, each of them, those different states of mind, and know it clearly, more clearly with your own experience. Okay, so. And His Holiness always advised to all the, the monks, especially the lamas, the Rinpoches, the lamas, and the Geshes. Very often he says, we have to be very careful, because once you started to, like similar to this verse, not turning the God into a devil, where as you started to study more and you have more practice, and as you started to have more and more kind of students, and if you don't watch that, then your mind can get corrupted. If you don't have a strong practice, it is easy for your mind to get corrupted. And we see with many teachers as well. They start with sincerely. When they first started, they have an intention to share the knowledge, the wisdom, share the teachings, what they have studied, what they have learned, and through studying and meditation, but because someone has not reached a strong, because still, even they are trying, and even they might have made some progress, but they haven't reached a better unmovable, stable realizations. And then because that everyone started to treat you so, so holy, then you started to feel you are more holy than you are, there is danger. Then you started to feel you are more holy than you are. You started to feel you are more enlightened than you are. You are started to feel you are more important than you are, because there are a lot of people, students, who are saying, oh, you are so important, you are so this and that, because you are so holy, you are so enlightened. And from the student side, overdoing that is danger too, By doing that, also they can put the teacher in a that kind of danger, that for them to be corrupted and feel that way. When also from the student side, they overly do that. And, it's like everyone is saying you are great, and even maybe you are not great, you started to feel you are great, because then because, oh, he said that, she said that, so many people said that. Maybe I must be, maybe I'm not aware, but I must be great. Otherwise, how can all these people be wrong? So many people say me that. Do you get it, what I mean? And that is either with the teacher, whether it is with also with our family, friends, whether with our children's parents, we don't have to overly do that sometimes, because then that can have enforce them to think something which they are not, because even though we're trying to sometimes our intention is trying to make them feel good, encourage them, but sometimes if you overdo that, then the other one can have a misunderstanding, and then especially when they don't have a strong practice and very strong foundations, and that is why sometimes you see teachers get corrupted, and a lot of scandals in all different religions, not just one religion, in every spiritual path, not only spiritual path, also different organizations, all of that, and because of that, and most of them, they started with very sincere motivations, intentions, very sincere intention motivations, but with the time, it is easy to get corrupted when you have so much that kind of attention and what you call adulations, like kind of praising and all kind of things, and so of course the teachers have more kind of that, but also as a practitioners also can have that, even they are not teacher, also in practitioner, when everyone started to say you are a good practitioner, or you are a good meditator, or you are good students, then again, they might be trying, we might start to feel we are more than what we are, and get a little bit kind of and then then that could lead to kind of exaggerations, that could lead to being kind of pride, arrogance, superiority, and all of that. There is a danger. So I think maybe, I think maybe I think that was the questions, and I think okay. So
Yes,
I think that's it.
Geshe,
Yes, please.
I won't say that you're great or important, but I think I can speak for all of us to say we're grateful you're here on a regular basis to give us teachings.
Well, maybe if you want to corrupt me.
Okay, you're very great, you're very important, and you're so holy too.
And then one day you all will get in trouble. You all have to deal with that. So I think thank you for your kind and nice word. But definitely, I have to be careful and not pretend what I'm not. You know, and I think I have been quite honest from the very beginning. You know, to when it comes, you know, I think when some of the students ask, you know, if I could be their teachers, I think, you know, I said, I'm a very ordinary being, you know, neither I'm Buddha, neither I'm a Bodhisattva, neither I'm in that, but of course I've studied a little bit and I have little experience. On the basis of that, if you are only on the basis of that, if you are okay to take, then that is one thing. But don't exaggerate and just make me Bodhisattva when I'm not. Don't try to make me Buddha when I'm not. And that has to be very clear. And I have said very clearly from the very beginning. And so that being the case, you know, I do make mistakes just like anyone else. You know, try not to make mistake, but definitely make mistake in everything, you know. And just like yourself, you know, I'm also very attached to samsara, you know, so attached, maybe I don't want to get enlightened. Maybe, so maybe I might think, you know, enlightenment might be very boring. Samsara is very, very interesting. That is joking. Okay. So, okay, thank you. So we can do the dedications. Thank you. Okay. Thank you. May all beings everywhere plagued by the suffering of body and mind obtain an ocean of happiness and joy by virtue of my merit. May no living creatures suffer, commit evil fall ill. May no one be afraid or belittled with a mind weighed down by depression. May the blind see forms and the deaf hear sounds. May those whose bodies are worn with toil be restored on finding repose. May the naked find clothing, hungry find food. May the thirsty find water and delicious drink. May the poor find wealth, joy. May the forlorn find hope, constant happiness and prosperity. May there be timely rains and bountiful harvest. May all medicine be effective and wholesome prayer bear fruit. May all who are sick and ill quickly be free from all ailments. Whatever disease they are in the world, may they never occur again. May the frightened cease to be afraid and those bound be freed. May the powerless find power, and may people think of benefiting each other for as long as space remains, for as long as sentient beings remain. Until then, may I too remain to dispel the miseries of the world. The wish-granting, wish-fulfilling juice, source of every single benefit and happiness in the world, to the incomparable kind things in Gazo, I beseech, may all your holy wishes be spontaneously fulfilled. To the Jiang Gwen Jave, Jin Jong Bewe, Gonzo, To Poro, Cho Song Go, Le Mo, To Thank you very much. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a wonderful day. Thank you.